Welcome to the Imagination Factory. I'm Sarah.
I'm Keith.
So I'm going to start by giving you the option of a genre or a kind of scenario.
Uh, yeah, scenario is good.
Scenario. Okay. So we have found a underwater kingdom of some kind,
Mm, okay.
and the inhabitants that live there are in a panic about something.
Mm,
So we are now in the sea, and some kind of creatures, maybe they're mermaid-esque, maybe they're lobsters. We haven't defined that yet, but they have some kind of a realm, a not Atlantis type thing necessarily, but some kind of a kingdom, and there's something that they have to deal with. Something is happening under there.
so immediately I'm thinking like, uh, for anybody that's read, Submariner for Marvel or Aquaman, right? They always fight these huge kaiju-sized creatures, right? That are truly um, momentous and monstrous, and anything that would probably level a city, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking in regards to whatever it is that just decided to, uh, I don't know, like they're going about their day, and like whatever that day looks like, farming the kelp and uh, doing any kind of like maintenance to their shell buildings, and then this huge monstrous arm kind of just smashes down, and
Yeah,
they're
like
they're
almost Kraken-esque. Yeah,
exactly.
there's something about deep, dark water that's always, like, freaked me out. Like, even just, like, the posters for, like, the Megalodon type movies with, like, the teeth and everything, there's just something about the vastness of underwater that I feel like there's kind of infinite possibilities almost in that respect, right? Like, anything could be down there because it's so deep and so dark and so expansive that, like you said, like, they're going about their day farming their kelp, and suddenly this thing appears out of nowhere to threaten them.
Yeah, so um, I think that, well, one of the rules that we're going to have to um, change here is the light, right?
Mhm.
Because you're saying, and correctly, you wouldn't be able to really see anything, right?
Yeah.
If it's a deep, dark kind of uh, dwelling, somehow they see an ultraviolet or some other spectrum of
Mm.
light, that
Mhm.
some kind of a light that uh, can only get through all of the depths, right? So I don't know what that is. I'm not a science person. I wouldn't know exactly what it is that they would be able to see in regards to the spectrum of light, but um, one of the things that I would imagine we're going to be um, changing here is that we will be able to see it, but we're seeing it
Yeah.
almost like through their eyes, right? So we can
Well,
see this deep.
and what could be really neat too is we can incorporate a little bit of bioluminescence in there as well, right? Like, so
Mhm.
maybe some of there are light sources coming off of things, right? So maybe they have down there some kind of plant that glows. It's like their little lantern kinds of things that they use, and stuff like that, right? Because that's a lot of how these creatures adapt to the deep is by having their own light. So that could be an interesting kind of thing as well. So maybe this monster that appeared is glowing, and some of the light is coming off of it.
Yeah, that could be, or like that maybe they have, to your point of using some kind of light source, which I think I've talked about this before, which is once you can kind of figure out like where your light's coming from, um, it helps you figure out like how you're going to render things. And so you
Mhm.
got me thinking a little bit, like, what if they've got like almost these bioluminescent masks? So
Ooh,
even
that's cool.
even though they're like under, like in the water, maybe to be able to see, they have to wear these masks that kind of go over their face and create like a light source. So it's almost like a spotlight. So you'll be able to see, um,
That's neat.
they can see things because of it, and they can see each other because of it, right?
Yeah, that's neat because then their glow alerts others that they're around, plus they can project their light to what they're looking at. Which also, to that point kind of adds to that creepiness that unless they're kind of facing it, they can't see it because it's not just illuminating everything everywhere. It's kind of a bit more pointed, of a light source.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, I've already drawn like creatures with like spears. Should I think of some other kind of thing that they would have? Like what other possible weapons would they have underwater that wouldn't be a spear?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess they could have created something using like different shells or claws, right? Like things that they've potentially gotten off of other creatures. Um Maybe I guess it depends also what the thing that they're fighting would be harmed by, right? Because that's the other
Mm,
thing too, is what kinds does it have a hard shell, or is it more of a soft creature that they could impale in a way? Or
mm.
would, maybe even their lights themselves, maybe it burns the creature that they're fighting against. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's right. So here's another light source. Maybe there's a
Yeah,
light, like some kind of phosphorescence, like whatever it is, that's been crushed by the pressure so much
yeah.
that it causes like this thing to have so much heat within it, right? That it could,
Almost like a
uh,
phaser or something like that they have, like, kind of developed, from their natural resources that were available to them down there. Because I think that's actually kinda neat where it's, like, something that they've used the technology that they could create based on being down in the depths of the ocean to create some kind of a natural formed weapon, right?
yeah, exactly. Like what again, this is all kind of like it'd be ultimately, I think if we had more time, we could look research like what would
Mhm,
some of the science be behind what we're talking about. Would is there actual so much pressure? Like you have volcanic eruptions. We know that you have
mhm.
like lava, right? So is it
Yeah,
somehow that they have like they've been able to figure out how to like take the lava, or is it more of a fantastical thing? So we're suspending science a bit and just making these very fantastical kind of weapons, and we're not going to worry so much about like what the scientific rules would be.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's a little bit of that too, because everything we're creating is sort of based in this kind of complete and utter fantasy, area, so I think likewise, their weapons could be, whatever technology they have invented down there, they've used to create their glowing helmets and their weapons that have this, ability to fight their enemies through, like, whether it be the heat sources. Maybe it is the light, like, the creatures down there shy away from it, that maybe just having the glowing, like, aimed at them in the right way is enough to make them wanna retreat because they can't handle the light. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's interesting when you kinda go to a place where you're like, "Really? It there are no rules because we're just making it up as we go, therefore we can make that rule ourself and decide that that's just how it works down there."
Yeah, well, it's what I thought was kind of interesting because I don't really play around in fantasy so much when it comes to my stories that I illustrate.
Mhm,
But what I just realized is when you're going, well, if we want to delve into more the fantastical and not have to worry about rules, then or the like
mhm,
things that are based in reality, I should say, worry about the rules that are based in reality, then that's when you would go with something that could be a more fantasy oriented story, right? So this
mhm,
story could be science-based or it could be more fantastical, right? Like that's we can make that decision and go, "Okay, you know what? Here's a fork in the road. Which way do we go? Do we have enough knowledge of what could exist down in the depths like that?
mhm,
Or do we just go, you know what? Let's not worry about that so much because this is going to give us more breathing space, right? I don't have that knowledge, right? If it was something maybe different,
Yeah.
I would be like, no, let's go with something more grounded in science. Like if we were talking more about like, I don't know, time travel or whatever, we can logic that
Right.
stuff out. But with this, it could be like, well, no, let's veer towards like, we don't know. We don't really know
Yeah,
any of
and
this.
I think there's something kind of fun about that because as to the point of the underwater that makes me nervous, it could be anything, right? Like, we don't know what's going down, like, deep, deep, deep down there, so we could make it up, right? And I do think there's something interesting there, right? Like, we have humanesque, characters, but there's nothing to say that they couldn't be joined by some other, like, a squid that's on their team or something that they ride that's,
Mm,
like, some kind of a creature down there that's assisting them. So it's almost the if we go the fantasy route, we can start really playing into fantasy, right? Like that we don't have to be grounded in any form of reality. We just are like, hey, this is what it's like when you go down there. It's a complete kingdom of these creatures that have this enemy that they have to fight, and you know, they were once humans and were trapped below and adapted and created this, bioluminescence, etc. Tamed these sea creatures and now have to protect their kingdom from the creatures that want it back.
right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It does give a little bit more of that ability to play around. And there's nothing that, you know, doesn't say that we couldn't actually, if this were to become a story that was uh, something we would develop more. We'd want to know the world building of it a little bit more, or,
Yes.
take more time. We could always go, well, actually, let's look into this. Like, is there something that we can throw in that would be based off of science here, um,
Mhm.
and see if how closely we came to doing that versus, um, like, or if it just makes the story really difficult if we start because that's one of those things too where sometimes you can be too clever by kind like you're like
Mhm.
you are trying to be so uh exact and really putting a lot of effort into something that all of a sudden you're tying yourself into knots trying to figure out how this story could be plausible and really at the end of the day, if you're like, okay, well, let's just suspend belief on this and do it the way
Yeah.
we really want to do it. And then all of a sudden, all those constraints that you just put on yourself, it frees you to be able to tell the story a bit better, right? I mean, it can go either way. You could actually be in a situation where if you don't have enough constraints, all of a sudden the story, you don't know where to go with the story, right? So, what are your thoughts in regards to like having a lot of constraints or having like being super free and going whichever direction you want with a story.
I I like to in something like this, I like to start super free and go wide. And then once we've kind of established that, then we start to apply constraints that keep us within the line of where we went. Right. So I don't think it becomes a world where it's like, like a bewitched that, you touch your nose and blink your eyes and anything can happen anywhere. I think it's like if we establish that they have a bioluminescent technology and they have adapted creatures that they can ride and etc., that becomes our own constraint. And is it based in reality or science? It is not, but we've decided that those are the rules of our universe that we're making. So we can't just suddenly change them, but we can be open right now to being like, what does that look like? Let's not be too bogged down in the science of it because, quite frankly, everything that we kind of do at this point is made up because it's not real that there would be, these kinds of things happening in the ocean that we know of. But I think part of it too is being like, let's just see where it goes, and then we can pull ourselves back if it gets too weird. If we
Yeah,
start to get to the point where we're like, "Okay, now we have Bigfoot has decided to swim and has joined the party." Maybe we pushed it too far. But I do think that allowing ourselves to kind of let off some of the restraints on it is potentially gonna make this a little bit more interesting of a story because of the type of thing we're doing.
you're right. But would you say that it could vary uh, depending on like what we're doing? Yes, like oftentimes we're really really starting with a blank slate, but if you have a kernel of an idea, a lot of it may come from the fact that you have some kind of knowledge of something. Like, so for example, you were um, just reading a story, some historical piece about like Russia in the 1800s, and you're like, oh my God, I have this great idea. And I have this knowledge now of what it was like then. And then you have that story you can kind of what
Mhm.
like, what's your approach to something like that where you're coming at it with an idea already?
I think it depends on what about the idea I liked, right? So, like with the example of like Russia in the 1800s, is it knowing enough about it to be able to tell a plausible story that could take place, in that place and time and for people to believe it enough to be into it? Or do you know enough about it to then be like, vampires lived there? We just didn't know about it, right? And create a completely fictional within that time and space. I tend to personally want to know enough to be able to push the rules out from there, versus being like, well, I want to make sure I stay true to all the facts and that kind of thing, because I feel like you get more interesting stories if you know enough about it to know what rules you're breaking. Right. So, like with what we're doing in this particular example, like you said off the bat, there's no light down there. Okay, so let's create a light source that isn't based in reality, but we are in the reality that there wouldn't be light without some form of a source in the deep water. So we're playing with enough knowledge to make it grounded, but not too much that we get bogged down in the necessary details. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing though, and so, okay, would you, as the writer, think of like some of the visual aspects of it to make, let's say, for example, you're like, oh, where is this light going to be coming from? I need to have a visual idea. Or would
Mhm,
you not really work, if working with an artist, you're like, I'm not really going to think about that stuff. I'll let the artist kind of figure it out. Right. Cause like the story as it's being, as unfolding here,
mhm,
I think it went into a very specific direction because I was like, "Okay, so here's where the light's gonna come from, and I need to
yeah,
know because otherwise it's gonna be I would have done this as a very dark kind of, um, composition, but, like, so would you as the writer think along those lines where you're like,
and that's
"Okay."
a great question. I think it depends on how crucial to the storytelling it becomes, right? So if it's more of a visual interest piece of where's the light coming from and you're designing some things, but if it's integral to the story that they have, part of the lore is that they've created these, bioluminescence from mining this plant to turn this into whatever, I'd probably be a little bit more attuned to making sure that that's in there. But if it's more of just a pure visual choice, I would probably let you run with it. And there might be certain things that come up at the visual stage that I didn't consider, right? That you might be like, okay, where does the light come from? Hmm, great question. What do you think? And then decide if it needs to be part of the story or it just is a visual that we never explain, right? Like it's just something that we've decided kind of off the sheet to be like, okay, going forward, this is how we treat it versus it actually needing to be explained in the story. And with an example like this, I don't know if it needs to be explained in the story, right? The visual is strong enough that you see that the glow is coming off of a helmet. You can put together that they did something without having to make it a whole like backstory element about how they created light.
Right. Um, I guess one of the things that, like, I'm trying to figure out is like, is this process that we're doing, is it helping you as a writer kind of start to
Mhm.
think about things, like to have new tools in your tool belt to go, you know what? Now that I get to watch like the
Yeah,
artist create, I can implement some of these things. Am I thinking about lighting when I'm writing something? Because now that you see how directly it connects with how the visual may
100%.
unfold, right?
Absolutely, and I think part of it too also becomes what type of story, I'm trying to write, right? And if it's one that has a strong visual component with it, I personally would probably, wanna talk with the illustrator earlier on as well, not just be like, "Here's my script, go to town," because, like you said, those things need to be figured out and addressed, and you certainly bring up things that from the story point of view and the writing point of view wouldn't necessarily be top of my list of things to consider, where I'm trying to think of, like, where are we in the characters and certain things like that. And you're making up a very, like, important point of being like, yeah, but how, if we're deep in the water, what, lights and shadows, and how does that work? Great
Yeah.
question. And to be honest, that would not have been one of the first things I thought about unless it was the cool part of the story was that, they had found this thing and mined it and turned it into this. Otherwise, it probably would not have been top of mind. So seeing you illustrate and hearing the questions that you come up with definitely make me think of things that I either want to make sure are built into the stories or that I've thought about to be able to properly brief somebody if I'm having somebody just come in after the fact and illustrate it.